The new Best Places to Work in the federal government report just came out. Let's take a look and see who came up on top and who came out on bottom. Let's talk about it. We will break this up into three sections. First, large agencies. The second will be the mid-sized agencies, and then finally we'll look at the smaller agencies. Looking at top agencies, the top one to work for is NASA, which now has a 10-year winning streak, coming in at 85.1 in the score for the index. This makes a lot of sense to me because when I think of NASA, I think of rockets going into space. I think of astronauts landing on the moon or going to Mars. And who wouldn't want to be a part of a mission like that? When your beliefs and values align closely with an agency or an organization, that can make your work seem that much more fulfilling. If you know you're doing a small part to get people back on the moon or to participate in actually going to Mars, that has to be rewarding. There's also this sense of prestige when you're talking about NASA because their mission is so unique. The second best large agency to work for is the Department of Health and Human Services, which scored second in effective leadership empowerment. And we all know how important leadership is. You can have the best job, but with a poor leader, it makes your time there horrible. You can easily fall under a toxic leader or a micromanaging or an aggressive leader. And that's all it really takes for employees to start quitting. You probably heard the saying that people don't quit their jobs, they're quitting their bosses. Also, HHS mission includes enhancing the health and well-being of all Americans. And that's a pretty noble mission statement that most people can get behind. Okay, so what ranks last in large agencies? Well, that distinction goes to the Department of Homeland Security. This agency actually fell about 4 points year over year. I think it's worth noting that DHS is the fourth largest federal agency. Now, I have nothing against DHS. I've actually went on an interview for that agency and I received a job offer. So why is this agency rated so low? The report mentions the lowest areas are innovation, leadership, and employee skills mission match. DHS, when you're looking at it, is kind of an umbrella agency. There are so many sub-agencies that fall underneath that umbrella. They have Immigration, Customs and Border Patrol, FEMA, TSA, Coast Guard, Secret Service. The report isn't really specific on which one of these sub-agencies were bringing down the entire rating, but I wouldn't let this discourage you from applying. So if you're looking at DHS, don't just see this report and paint it with the same brush thinking that they're all bad. There are some good sub-agencies in there, and everyone's experience is going to be a little bit different. Next, let's look at mid-size agencies. For number one, we have the National Science Foundation, which exists to promote the progress of science. This agency is usually involved when universities are asking the government for money. When they ask for grants, it usually goes through this agency. They had a score of 86, and their strongest ratings were in leadership, pay, and innovation. Also, when looking at the trends, this agency has been on a steady increase over the last 10 years. So what ranks last for mid-size agencies? That distinction goes to the National Labor Relations Board. This agency exists to protect the rights of private sector employees to improve wages and working conditions. The main problems identified with this agency were innovation, work-life balance, and recognition. And if you take a minute and look at the workforce chart, you can tell that the number of employees has been shrinking. This could be one of the reasons why the federal employees at this agency could be feeling underappreciated or overworked. Now, let's shift our focus and look at the smaller agencies. Coming in at number one is the Pension Benefit Guaranty Corporation. This agency exists to protect pensions and retirements of over 33 million workers. The top categories and rankings were teamwork and agency performance. Now, this is a smaller agency, like I mentioned. They only have 950 employees. Coming in at number two is the National Endowment for the Humanities, with a score of 84. Another small agency that mainly exists to provide money to museums, to the humanities, also to archives, libraries, universities, public television, and radio stations. The top rankings and categories for this agency were recognition and the way it responded to the recent pandemic. So, what ranks last for small agencies? That distinction goes to the Federal Election Commission. They enforce federal campaign finance laws, including monitoring donation prohibitions, and limits the overseas public funding for presidential campaigns. Now, this is like opening a big old can of worms. You hear all the time that there are issues when the media speaks about super PACs, large donations, and political funding. And if you look at the average cost to fund a presidential campaign these days, you're talking about spending in the billions. And that's outrageous. That's really unbelievable. All right, so despite what agency you happen to be working in or which one you're trying to get employment in, all of these can be different. I worked at the Department of Veteran Affairs, and from one office to the next office, it was a completely different culture. So you really have to keep that in the forefront of your mind as you're applying, interviewing, and when you accept job offers. If you're wondering how these rankings were calculated for these agencies, the employees were given a survey. I believe it's called an employee engagement survey, where you'll receive an email as a federal employee and you'll be encouraged to click a link in order to fill it out. And they'll ask you probably around 25, 50, sometimes even more questions. And there'll be an essay part as well, so you can give your input on how you feel the agency is doing. Then the Boston Consulting Group does some calculations and provides a number. And here are some examples of the questions that are asked during the survey. Now, we all know one of the most attractive benefits from working in a federal government job is the pension. But there are other jobs that offer pensions. And if you want to know the top 5 jobs that do offer pensions today, then I want you to watch this video next. If you like this video and would like to see more like it, please click like and subscribe. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.